Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. I'm not being quite as loud today because it's early in the morning and I'll get in trouble if I wake people up doing this video, but it must be done. Before we get going, don't forget the private groups, daixrp.com through the Patreon. Click the join button below YouTube to join the, if you'd rather join through YouTube. Today, you know, Eric Trump is talking about crypto replacing Swift now. What have we been talking about for 7 years on this channel? What I wanted to do is talk about what does that look like if Ripple, basically, like Brad Garlinghouse said, in fact takes over Swift. What would that look like for XRP prices? What do you think it would look like? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in the group. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to show you this. This is Jake Boyle from Caleb & Brown, who is my affiliate partner. And I wanted to show you, this is what it's like. This is what happens when you open a Caleb & Brown account.
People who are watching this who are already existing clients. So when you create an account with us, you'll instantly get access to our online portal. What we want to do as a business is we want to take advantage of all the great technological advancements over the years, but we never want to lose sight of the real human element. So you'll get access to an online portal. You will, unfortunately, need to go through the whole know your customer process. Don't get me wrong. I've been in crypto for ages. I hate doing it myself, but it's a necessary evil unless you want to, see me in prison. So once you get your account set up, and our onboarding team can walk you through the process, whether it's an individual account, a complex corporate structure, could be in Europe, it could be in Asia, it could be anywhere around the world for the most part. And from that point forward, you're going to be assigned a personal broker. Now, your broker's job is to answer every question you might possibly have about cryptocurrency. So, the whole point of the broker is all the annoying topics, all the horrible things that you're scared of, you've got their phone number, you've got their email, and they've got a 24/7 team working around them so that you will always have someone there to pick up the phone or reply to you. Or you might even be able to meet them in person, depending on what city they're traveling through and what city you're in. So from that point, you have your online account with us. You've got your online portal, which will show research, your holdings, all our banking details, all our transactional processes. It'll all be centralized in one simple, easy spot. And from that point forward, you can speak to your broker who's assigned to you. And whether you want to buy Theta, whether you may be interested in other cryptocurrencies, whether you're looking to buy, sell, swap, you might even have really complex strategies like utilizing dollar cost averaging strategies, stop limit orders. The list goes on and on. Our job is just to provide the hard work so you can go about your day not having to stress about all the annoying bits and pieces involved in engaging with crypto.
This is something that I've been looking for since I got into this. That's why I put a lot of my XRP at Caleb & Brown. Having a personal relationship with someone who can actually help me when the market goes crazy and this type of thing. And I think everybody out there is craving the same thing. Caleb & Brown is the only place for retail I've found where you can have a situation like this and at the same time have institutional grade custody. That's why I joined up with them. You can sign up for an account, go to xrpwealth589.com and you can go and sign up today. And by the way, Jake Boyle will be from Caleb & Brown. He'll be at XRP Las Vegas. Go to xrplasvegas.com to get your tickets. We're less than like 29 days away. Does everybody remember when Monica Long said this earlier in the week?
You mentioned Hidden Road earlier, the acquisition. Yeah. I think you spent 1.25 billion on that.
Yes.
Is that an indication that Ripple's going to be more acquisitive going forward now?
Yes.
Acquisition mode, and then this came out. M&A Animal Spirits in Crypto. As Bloomberg reports, Ripple offered to buy Circle for as much as $5 billion, but the bid was rejected as too low. And then John Deaton says, if Ripple and Circle combine by becoming a bank, becoming a bank is next. Inquiring minds want to know, how high will Brad Garlinghouse go? Michael Arrington, who is Brad Garlinghouse's best friend, says they are already a bank in every way that matters to me. And then the official cool guy of the Digital Asset Investor channel put this out. Final offer before we unleash RLUSD. Michael Arrington also said Ripple pitched buying Circle for $4 billion to $5 billion, but offer was rejected per Bloomberg. David Schwartz comes in and says $6 billion, but that's our final offer. And then I think he deleted that tweet. Meanwhile, Tether plans to launch a U.S. stablecoin product by the end of 2025 or early 2026. That's the CEO. And I'm asking the question, because Tether can't pass the auditing necessary to become a U.S. stablecoin. They do have an interesting past that they don't seem to want to show. I'm trying to keep these people honest. This is Mark Harvey. Let's see what his deal is. Yep, he's a Bitcoin guy, go figure. Returns this far. Put strategy at plus 31%, gold plus 26, Bitcoin plus 1. And I just wanted to remind everybody, XRP is plus 325%, actually now plus 330%. This is Coin Paprika, the return rates. XRP dwarfs all the other top 10s in returns, but they just don't seem to want to talk about it. I called this over 7 years ago, folks. I said it in the worst of times when this market was only 100 billion. I told you, not only, this was back when all the Wall Street firms like Goldman Sachs were saying Bitcoin's going to go to zero, crypto's worthless, all this stuff. And I said, not only is Wall Street coming in, but they're all coming in. Not just Goldman, not just Morgan Stanley, all of them. Here's E-Trade. Morgan Stanley, who owns E-Trade, plans to offer crypto trading to E-Trade clients. That'll be their first salvo. Here's Tom Emmer. He was on with Thinking Crypto. He does not hold a very high opinion of Gary Gensler. Neither do I.
I mean, I just got back from a trip to California to see some of our friends, and I understand that there are many in the digital assets community who have pledged they will not hire any talent, and there's a ton of it, at MIT unless and until Gary Gensler is fired. Gary Gensler really proved himself to be one of the most disingenuous, or more directly put, dishonest individuals that we dealt with in the last administration. I don't know how he thinks he can move from a black cape to a different cape overnight, right? That he can be one person before he went into the administration, and that was when he was teaching this very subject to students at MIT. Then he becomes Darth Vader of the evil empire that was the last administration, where he was carrying the water for Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown and others that just they're deathly afraid, Tony, and you know this.
Yeah, we know it all right. I'm not going to play this video because it's too long, but this is from Subjective Views regarding stablecoin market structure, build digital assets. Congressman Fritz Hill says we're going to get it done. And then I'm also not going to play this one because it's too long. The CIA is excited about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is here to stay. And I said, of course they are. This stuff was all planned, folks. Make no mistake about that. This is where the interesting stuff begins. This is Eric Trump on stage at Token 2049 Dubai.
It's hard to move. It's really only accessible, at least on large.
What are you thinking of while he says this?
Scale to kind of very few. It's very static in terms of location. Then all of a sudden you go to cryptocurrencies, which is immediately liquid, easy to move, accessible to anyone, and you actually realize that cryptocurrencies become the greatest hedge in the world to kind of hard assets. But what it made me also realize is how absolutely antiquated and broken the modern financial system is.
And then he said this. He almost sounds like Brad Garlinghouse, folks.
Try and send money from New York City to Abu Dhabi, right? If you're a U.S. citizen. What bank branch do you find in Abu Dhabi that you can send the money? And then, what's the currency conversion rate between the U.S. dollar and here, and do you trust the person on the other side, and can you communicate with that person efficiently, and how slow is the SWIFT transfer system going to be, and how many fees are going to be taken by the issuing bank and by the receiving bank and by the currency conversion and whoever processes the technology. And what crypto does, it actually makes that whole process kind of redundant, right? And
Bitcoin doesn't, but I know one that does. Here's Brad Garlinghouse. This is multiple clips. Has there been anybody else? This is the whole reason I'm here, folks. When I saw Ripple and I heard what they were saying, and I heard the words they were using, I've been locked in since 2013-14 because I couldn't get out of my head that not only had I never seen a company talk like this, much less a startup talk like this and say the things they were saying. It's pretty bold vision, isn't it?
I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is in fact taking over SWIFT, in that we've now signed up well over 100 banks. Some of the largest SWIFT-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. That's the type of dynamic that SWIFT isn't able to support that we're able to address right now. And one of the former board members of SWIFT, a gentleman, Marcus Treacher, joined our team to run all of customer success. And, this was, a former board member from SWIFT coming over and saying, hey, we don't think SWIFT's going to be necessarily a solution to really unlocking this Internet of Value. These are, marks along the journey.
Let me go past that one. I don't know what kind of music.
SWIFT is kind of a competitor. It's slightly more complicated than that because SWIFT is really just messaging. When you send a SWIFT transfer, it's not liquidity. You're actually sending bank messages to banks that have liquidity. So to some degree, Citibank and HSBC, really the top two, JPM, those are the top three liquidity banks. And when you're sending SWIFT messages, you're sending messages to banks to release liquidity and making sure the debits and credits match. So to some degree, really boil it down, Ripple's competing with the liquidity of Citi and the messaging of SWIFT, but in one, because we're both messaging and liquidity. And at the end of the day, again, as I described, SWIFT was developed 50 plus years ago. It architecturally hasn't really changed. It does remain slow, days. It does remain, relatively speaking, expensive. And actually, interestingly, it's quite error prone.
Okay, so then Smoke comes in with this about Visa and SWIFT are upgrading to Ripple.
There are many use cases now, very successful investment use cases. And I won't go through these in detail other than to say, very briefly, that there are good reasons why a lot of value is being captured. So if you look at number one, as I already mentioned, we need infrastructure to allow for the digitalization of finance and commerce. And that's being created by companies with names like Anchorage and Fireblocks and Kraken and so on. And these are digital custodians or wallets or marketplaces. And we're investors in all of those, are ones that we show as examples here. In terms of monies and commodities and assets, the same thing is true. We're taking things like SWIFT or Visa or MasterCard, and we're upgrading them into digital equivalents, which have names like Ripple or Yellow Card. And we're digitalizing monies like the US dollar into things like Tether and Circle, and we're an investor in Tether and Circle as well. At the commodity level, we can take gold, and you can buy and sell gold physically or through derivatives like ETFs. But we are now tokenizing gold, so you can buy and sell gold over digital wallets and digital infrastructure with things like Pax Gold. So we can do it with traditional commodities. Of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum are new to the world commodities, and we were early investors in them as well. And then you can do it with any other asset. So we can actually take any asset, like the example here, a money market fund from BlackRock. We can tokenize that and make that money market fund called BIDL be available in digital infrastructure anywhere in the world, 24/7. And that's why BlackRock's so excited by the tokenization of other real-world assets.
You better believe they are. And then we had this from Smoke. This guy's been on fire lately. U.S. Department of Treasury presentation released 8 hours ago acknowledges RLUSD alongside established giants like USDT and USDC and USDT. Here it is, digital money. Treasury.gov, and then he's got the slides where they talk about RLUSDs right there, Tether, USDC, Circle. And then here it's mentioned again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the DAIXRP.com, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, okay, so let's say Ripple and what they're doing does replace Swift. Let's talk about what you all want to hear about anyway, which is, what does that look like? What does that look like in terms of XRP price? And the numbers that I'm going to show you are pretty eye-opening, and I didn't come up with them. They're pretty, the numbers will blow your mind. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family, away we go.